Good Sunday morning and welcome to WGN TV Political Report. I'm Paul Lisnick. We start with the race for president. This morning, a few top Democrats are waiting by the phone for a call that could change their life. Vice President Kamala Harris is slated to hit the campaign trail this week with her VP pick. The campaign shortlist reportedly includes Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, who sat for some interviews last week. Now, tomorrow, Harris will officially become the party's nominee thanks to a virtual roll call vote, but the campaign already well underway. I sat down with Illinois Congresswoman Lauren Underwood to talk with her about a new coalition called Illinois Women for Harris. Congresswoman, thanks for being with me today. Appreciate it.
Good morning, Paul. Thanks for having me.
You got it. So I want to start by getting your reaction to the comments made by former President Trump this past Wednesday here in Chicago for the Black Journalists Association. He criticized the vice president on her race. He went after her about law school credentials. Thing is, those kinds of attacks worked against Hillary Clinton in 2016. What do Democrats have to do to ensure that it doesn't happen again in 2024?
Well, I think that it's the same Donald Trump. We were able to beat him in 2020 when he launched these racist attacks against our vice president. It just shows how small-minded he is, how narrow his worldview is, and the American people aren't interested in the politics of division. Time and again, we've chosen to express our value that our diversity is our strength, and we've affirmed that time and again, and President Trump's comments are just out of touch.
So you are leading a new group involving lots of familiar names here in Illinois called Illinois Women for Harris. Is to support the vice president in her run for the presidency. It involves events, community outreach, driving voter education. Here's the thing. Illinois is already a pretty blue state. So I'm sort of curious what kind of specific things you think need to happen in Illinois, which I think is safely in the Harris pocket.
Well, you know what's so interesting is in the 2 weeks since Vice President Harris became our nominee as the Democratic nominee for president, I've been hearing so much excitement from folks all across my community. And then people say, well, what can I do? And so, what I believe very strongly that people need to be asked to take part of winning campaigns. And so what we're trying to do with our great Senator Tammy Duckworth, the members of the delegation, our statewide women electeds, our chairperson of the Democratic Party, and even our First Lady, M.K. Pritzker, are all joined together as part of this leadership team. What we're going to do is we're going to tell folks how they can get involved in this campaign, whether they want to travel to a nearby battleground state like Wisconsin or Michigan, whether they want to make phone calls into battleground states, whether they want to support our fundraising efforts, or to advance the message of Vice President Harris's campaign. There's a role for everyone to be involved. But what we do know is that we have very competitive communities here in Illinois. We have some very competitive congressional districts. I know a lot about winning in competitive districts. And let me tell you, when we can all be focused on winning up and down the ticket, it helps everybody. And so the more people we can get involved, the better.
Well, unless people forget, you flipped a red district blue when you
That's
first
right.
entered contract and Congress. And so then you're making that point. What lessons did you learn about convincing suburban people that it was okay to shift to the Democratic Party?
Well, what I learned is that there's more that unites us than that divides us. And in my community, people were looking for someone who was willing to work hard, get things done, and reach across the aisle. And that's exactly what Vice President Harris has done throughout her time in the White House.
This is not the first time Democrats have put a woman up, obviously, for the presidency. And there's nothing to indicate, as I said before, that the former President Trump will change his tactics. Given that, will this be an issue more about her, about the vice president and her race and her gender, that kind of thing? Or do you think Democrats can keep things focused on issues like abortion and the border and other things, economy?
I think this election is about what kind of America do we want to be? Do we want to be a country where everyone has the freedom to make their own choices, the freedom to start a business, and to be able to support their family and to be able to leave a lasting legacy for the generations to come? Or do we want to be a place that wants to take us backwards and restrict rights? And I think that that's the real choice in this election. Vice President Harris has an incredible vision that does involve reproductive freedom. You're absolutely right, and growing our economy and lowering costs and supporting the middle class, right? And that's something that certainly has broad support across my community here in Northern Illinois. And I think she'll be very successful.
The argument on the border, and she's been, on the stump some, and she's sort of saying, look, there was a bill, Trump ordered it killed, that's why we don't have it. But a lot of Republicans and independents may look and say, but this administration didn't do much for the first 3 years on this issue. And now all of a sudden, they're trying to take credit for saying they tried to push something through. How do you address that issue?
Well, when we look at the numbers, Paul, it's just so clear that border encounters are down. I mean, historic lows at this point. And so the action that President Biden has taken to address the situation at our southern border, to give our Border Patrol officers additional resources, to invest in technology tools to be able to catch fentanyl and other, human trafficking and other illicit items at the border, it's working. And the deterrence factors, right, to discourage people from trying to enter our country through irregular or illegal means is also working. The deterrence is working. And so I think that Vice President Harris, what we see her doing is telling the story of the work that the Biden-Harris administration is doing along the southern border and the successes that they are seeing.
On the economy, of course, look, Democrats and President Biden have always pointed to the indicators are good. The indicators are strong. Things are moving in the right direction. But Congresswoman, you know that people don't feel it. They're still paying too much for gas. They go to the grocery store. They're not happy. How do you bridge that gap to say, no, don't worry about what you're paying. Look at the indicators. They're really good. People go, I'm not feeling it.
Oh, I would never say that. Listen, we're not trying to convince people that they didn't see what they saw. We're not trying to tell people that gas isn't higher, that groceries might be a little bit higher. But we do want people to know is that we are taking on these corporations and the corporate greed and the price gouging to hold them accountable while we still see record job creation, right? Over 15 million new jobs while we can still see record low unemployment. So we got to do multiple things at once. But I'm laser focused on lowering costs for the American people. And we've seen major successes, particularly in healthcare. When we think about those challenges on a family's budget and the things that cause strain, it's often an unexpected diagnosis, or they need to get a procedure, or they need to fill a new prescription. They just can't afford to do that. Well, Paul, I wrote a bill called the Healthcare Affordability Act that says that no American would pay more than 8.5% of their income for marketplace plans. And because President Biden signed this into law in March of 21, we saw over 21 million Americans sign up for healthcare coverage. 4 out of 5 people can get a plan for $10 or less per month, and we have the lowest uninsured rate in American history. That's on top of the action that we took to lower prescription drug costs, to let Medicare negotiate prescription drug prices, to cap insulin at $35 a month, right? There's real proof points to this assertion that when we say we're focused on lowering costs, we mean it. Healthcare costs, junk fees, tackling corporate greed, right? And the American people see us fighting for them.
And finally, this, we've seen the vice president rising in the polls and stuff. Some of that certainly can be expected. Do you think this is about her and going forward, or do you think it's about the 80+% of Democrats who are just relieved that President Biden decided to step down? How do you maintain the vice president's positive movement in the polls?
Well, Paul, what we're seeing is that Democrats are certainly supporting our nominee. We're seeing independent voters supporting our nominee, and that's how she's going to win in November. You have to remember that there are large swaths of this country that we are not a 50-50 country, Paul. We have an electoral college, right, which is what makes things look a little bit more even. What we have in terms of our country, the popular vote, is a popular vote that supports Democratic candidates. And so I think that we're seeing that reflected in the polling. And certainly we're seeing that reflected in the polling in the key battleground states. Vice President Harris is going to be able to win that popular vote, and she's going to be able to win the Electoral College and become our next president of the United States, making history. And I am so excited to be leading the Illinois Women for Harris Coalition to be able to support her.
You are right. It is all about the Electoral College, whether we like it or not. That is
Yes.
live. Congresswoman Lauren Underwood of the 14th District, thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me. I appreciate it. Have a good rest of your weekend.
You too.
All right, we're going to take our first break. Coming up next on WGN TV Political Report.
I never imagined that an overwhelming majority of our customer base would just be the staff of the event, essentially.
Just weeks before the DNC, lessons from the RNC. Business owners in Milwaukee give Chicagoans an idea of what to expect when the Democratic National Convention arrives. And later this half hour, President Joe Biden wants to reform the Supreme Court. Will his proposals move the needles in Washington? We're talking to an expert about that. Don't go anywhere.